I welcome you back to Theosophy Philosophy. This is our fourth course in the curriculum of integrated theology. I am your host, Bishop Dr. Derek A. Reeves. Now, let's dive right into our lesson today. Today, we're going to have to divide this lecture into two parts. It is entitled The Islamic Golden Age, Part 1. Let's dive right in. The Islamic Golden Age contributions to science and philosophy were within a theological framework were very important. The Islamic Golden Age, roughly the 8th to the 14th century, was a period of immense intellectual flourishing, where advancements in science and philosophy were often undertaken within a theological framework. The pursuit of knowledge was viewed not as secular endeavors, but as an act of piety and devotion guided by the Quranic injunctions to reflect on creation and hadith, or the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, and they emphasized the mandatory seeking of knowledge. It's very important that we come to understand that in the Islamic faith, they were so driven by the intellectual and incorporating this intellectualism into their studies of the Quran. And that's because they were very, very astute and serious about the Quran. And so, in their expansion of their theological exercises, it was expected of them to study all types of sciences and to allow the Quran to introduce and validate whether these sciences were established truths or should be. And so the theological foundation for scientific knowledge was literally the impetus of bringing philosophy into the religiosity of the Islamic faith. One of the principles that was set into motion was the Tawheed, or the oneness of God, the concept of God's unity and the divine order of creation motivated scholars to find a coherent, unified explanation for the world. Logical consistency and seeking harmonious explanations were highly valued. And these things, these searches, reflected the belief in a single national creator, or rational creator, excuse me. And so all of the studies were to compile and ultimately point towards a creator who is rational and all-powerful. Example, intricate geometrical designs in Islamic architecture, such as the Mughna's dome. They were not just aesthetic, but they were mathematical representations of Tawheed, symbolizing the infinite nature of God and the divine order through symmetry and patterns. And so even the architecture began to reflect on the divine reason and harmony and order of the mind of God. Reason and revelation in the Muslim philosophies often sought to reconcile reason with philosophy and science and bring it into a merging with revelation of religious scripture. They believed that both were paths to truth and could lead to a deeper understanding of God and the universe. And from this, we have to say that they were very, very intellectually astute and correct in understanding, because the scripture says that the very heavens declare the glory of God. Many of the Christian mistakes were that they opposed scientific understanding because it came from the secular. But it is important to realize, allow the secular to research what they can, because in most cases, it's the secular that has the scientific equipment, that know how to do the scientific knowledge and research and observation. And then it's left up to us to take what they have seen and interpret it through the light of the scripture. And so they did believe that both were paths to truths and could lead to deeper understanding of God and the universe. The intellectual efforts to interpret the text and derive knowledge is known as tichihad or tiyad, and this was often performed within Islamic worldviews. And so the ititat, or some say jihad, the bringing of all into the structured order of the Islamic faith. Practical religious needs, they believed that they needed scientific fields, and these scientific fields were advanced by practical requirements of the faith. There was astronomy, and through their astronomy, it refined calculations that were crucial for determining the Qibla, the direction of prayer towards Mecca. They set up accurate prayer times and established the lunar calendar for religious observances like Ramadan and Hajj. Scholars like al-Patani made precise calculations of the solar year, which were later used for these religious needs. The geography, they used the need to map the vast caliphate for administration and pilgrimage routes, along with determining the Qibla, the Qibla movement that drove significant advances into cartography. And so when we speak of cartography, we're talking about then the recognition of positions in which were to be designated as holy, which were to be designated as places of worship. Now, there were, excuse me, key contributions to science. Scholars not only preserved and translated classical Greek, Roman, and Indian works at centers like the House of Wisdom in Baghdad, but also expanded upon them, applying empirical observations with their spiritual content. So, in the mathematical discipline, pioneering developed of algebra from al-Jabri with al-Khwarizmi as a central figure, adopted and popularized Arabic numerals, including the concept of zero from India, which were essentially for complex calculations in astronomy and financed, and also advances in trigonometry, which is considered al-Buzani or al-Buzjani. And the theological link, it provided the logical and computational tools to uncover the divine order and the structure of the cosmos, of astronomy and creation, which we use geometry. Then there was medicine. Medicine was the systemic documentation and expansion of Greek and Persian medicine. Ibn Sina, which was called Avicenna or Avicenna, his canon of medicine was a standard text for centuries. It introduced concepts of quarantine and experiential evidence-based medicine and distinguished between contagious diseases. Al-Razi or Razis described smallpox and measles. The pursuit of healing was seen as an act of charity and a moral obligation stemming from the Hadith, emphasizing the benefit to mankind. The establishment of the first major public hospitals. So all of these became some of the Islamic contributions to the religiosity and the attempt to merge both religion, science, and philosophy. And then in optics, Ibn al-Haytham, or al-Haytham, his book of optics correctly explained the light. That light comes into the eye, overturning the Greek emission theory, pioneering in the scientific method through rigorous experimentation and logic. Now, the theological point of view of this came, the study of light was a study of divine phenomenon and a means to better understanding the physical world created by God. And we're going to stop right here with part one, and we'll be back for part two. This has been Theosci Philosophy from our fourth course in Integrated Theology, and I am your host, Bishop Dr. Derek A. Reeves. Until next time, God bless you.